I'm really happy to be with all of you today to tell the story of the Louisiana Office of Social Entrepreneurship. But I want to say before I begin that what Andrew said is really true. I really have the great fortune to work every day with someone who really does get it very deeply and very passionately from his heart and soul. And that really is a blessing to be able to do public service with someone like the Lieutenant Governor. Something that the Lieutenant Governor says all the time is that resurrection and redemption can often be found in the most unlikely places. And we found that to really be true in 2005 and 2006. After New Orleans and other parts of Louisiana experienced the worst natural disaster in the history of this country, we learned pretty quickly that there was no place that deserved redemption and resurrection for its people more than the city of New Orleans. And so what we found ourselves faced with back in the middle to end of 2005 and following is what would our response be to that disaster. A disaster that destroyed approximately 80% of the city of New Orleans, separated families, destroyed communities, and threatened to destroy one of the most unique cultures in the world. We had to respond, and what the Lieutenant Governor and our team came up with was the Office of Social Entrepreneurship. The idea that redemption and resurrection, but also innovation, were desperately needed in our state, but particularly in New Orleans. Many of you will remember some of the terrible scenes that you saw right after Katrina hit New Orleans, focused on many of the country's most troubling urban problems. Most of those problems, it seemed, I would imagine, to the rest of the country and to the rest of the world as problems that were caused by Hurricane Katrina. But in fact, while Katrina did put a spotlight on those problems, many of those issues had been problems in New Orleans and across our state for many, many years prior to the storm. And so that tragedy actually served as an impetus to people in Louisiana, to elected officials, to community leaders, to business leaders, to everyone in the state, to try to come up with a new way of thinking, a new way of acting, a new way of working together. We were really forced to because we had no other options. We wanted to survive as a community and as a state, and we had to figure out how to do that. And so our office's response to the storm, to what we saw and what we felt on the ground, was to create this office that focused on coming up with innovative ways to deal with problems. Most immediately, the problems that surfaced after the storm, but again, really trying to come up with a new approach to deal with problems that had been long-standing throughout the state. And so in 2006, we started the office. We really weren't sure exactly what direction we were going to take at the time. We just knew that we wanted to promote the idea of service and innovation. And we were very lucky because the Lieutenant Governor's office oversees the Louisiana Serve Commission. So a part of our mandate was to promote citizen service throughout the state. And so over 1.5 million volunteers from across the world had come to New Orleans after the storm and in the years after the storm, and so we knew that service was going to be a very important element, and we knew that we wanted to focus on innovation, and so we began to think about how to put those two pieces together. And so the Office of Social Entrepreneurship seemed like a good fit, although I do admit that we weren't exactly sure what that office was going to look like until we met Andrew in 2007. We were at a conference at NYU, and we had the great fortune to meet Andrew, and we began to talk with him and to strategize with him. We signed him up and paid him all that we could afford, which was zero. But he agreed to work with us and to help us think through how to put together a strategy that would do something that no other state office had ever done. And so we worked together for 2007 on that plan that continued into 2008. And one of the things that we knew we wanted to do right away was to launch an institute, a way to work with innovators across the state. But I want to go back to 2007 because I'm forgetting a very, very important step. This whole notion of how to define innovation and social entrepreneurship and what to call it, and is it new and has it existed before? We struggled with all of those things. And the one thing that we learned is that we had to define what we meant by social entrepreneurship. And I think that's a really important point, that, you know, each organization or each social enterprise or each social entrepreneur has to define what the term means to him or to her. And so we came up with a definition, and then we decided, well, we need to kind of get out into the state, and we need to tell people what the term means and what we intend to do in our office. And so we created a public awareness campaign called Changing Louisiana for Social Entrepreneurship and Service. And we're very lucky to have the Lieutenant Governor, who's a great advocate and champion for this work, but he also is a phenomenal public speaker. And so with the Lieutenant Governor, and in partnership with cities, major cities across the state of Louisiana, we set out to pull communities together to talk about this work and what it could mean, but also to learn from them about what the needs on the ground were, so that as we continue to build our strategic plan, we could build it around what the actual needs of the state happened to be. That campaign was wildly successful. It was a huge success. We got so much positive press. We really didn't know what to do, but we knew we were onto something really big. We got people who had never talked before, who had never worked together before, who had never met each other before, to come together, hundreds and hundreds. By the time we finished, we had over 1,000 people who had come to listen to what we had to say about social innovation and social entrepreneurship. And so we knew that we were moving in the right direction. People didn't exactly understand what the term meant, but they were very, very excited about it. They knew that they wanted to learn more, and they loved the networking opportunities. And so to the panelists who spoke earlier this morning, I learned so much from you, and am so inspired by what I heard, because it helps us to know that I think we're moving in the right direction. That convening role and the facilitation role and the opportunity to give people the chance to network and to talk to one another and to learn from one another is very important. And so moving forward again to 2008, we wanted to, after we did our public awareness campaign, we then wanted to do some sort of an institute where we could bring innovators in and work with them and learn from them and begin to think about how to scale the work that they were doing in the state. And so in partnership with Andrew, with Root Cause, and also with Community Wealth Ventures, we were very pleased to present the first Social Innovators Institute. We selected 12 social enterprises from across the state and invited them to come in and to participate in a very rigorous 6-month business planning workshop. And as a result of that process, at the end of the 6-month period, we will select 3 that we believe have the most potential, and we will give them some seed funding from our office. We also hope to bring a lot of attention to the work of all of our innovators so that they can attract capital and funding and other kinds of support from other funders.